Have you ever had that strange feeling that, even though it strives, anything invisible still pulls you behind? As if there was a force silently sabotaging its growth. Yeah. What if I told you that maybe this force is within you, disguised as habits so common that they seem even harmless? The truth is that many of us carry behaviors that, day after day, will weaken us without realizing it. Today I want to invite you to do a deep cleaning not in the closet, but in mind and soul. We will unravel 7 toxic habits that have the power to destroy dreams, relationships, and even your emotional health, and more importantly I will show you how to break them now, without whining, without complicated theories. If you have tired of feeling that you deserve more about life, but don't understand what holds you, stay here with me. This journey may be exactly what you needed to turn the game. Then prepare coffee or sheet gas with water, set the posture, because what comes next can change much more than your day, it can change your destination. We live in an era when social pressure hits stronger than a Monday alarm. Everyone seems to run against the clock, seeking success, recognition, and that perfect life that only exists in the feed of social networks. The charge to fit into unrealistic patterns leaves many suffocated, insecure, as if they were always one step back. It is a true silent war where the most dangerous weapon is the constant comparison. And not stop their self-destructive, often masked rewards behaviors such as emotionally eating, procrastinating, or sinking into distractions become a camouflaged addiction. Do you know that excuse of "I deserve" after a difficult day? Yeah. She may be keeping you exactly in the same place, day after day. The problem is that each small choice made on autopilot gradually shapes a destination that you have not consciously chosen. Recognizing these challenges is the first step in turning the game. It's no use fighting enemies that we don't even know exist. The modern world requires more than resilience, it requires active conscience. And that's where the turn begins, when you stop just reacting and act with intention. And speaking of acting, you know which silent enemy we need to face now? Let's talk about him below. Procrastination is that invisible thief that steals dreams in the mute. Sometimes she comes disguised as 5 more minutes, sometimes like "I do later." The problem is that this later turns never without us noticing. Each task postponed is like a brick stacked on a wall that separates you from life that could be building. And the worst part? Deep down, we know that, but pretends not. Procrastination also feeds on the illusion that there will always be time. But the clock doesn't stop to wait for anyone. As long as you hesitate to act, the days pass, opportunities evaporate, and the dream cools. A simple example: how many amazing projects were only in the field of ideas for lack of that first step? And if it had started 6 months ago, where would you be today? This question, although uncomfortable, may be a watershed. So here is a practical trick to start breaking this chain. Use the 2-minute rule. If a task can be started in less than 2 minutes, do it now, without negotiating with your mind. This little victory over procrastination generates a chain of positive action. Because movement generates movement, and inertia. Well, this only generates regret. Now that we talk about the invisible delay, how about we face another even more treacherous enemy? Do you know that little voice that whispers you are not good enough, that it will fail or no use trying? Yeah, this is the sound of self-sabotage in action. She lives in every doubt, every paralyzing fear, every elegant excuse we invent to justify not acting. The cruel is that it often presents itself as protection, but in practice, it is a prison you build yourself, brick by brick. The first step in overcoming this internal sabotage is starting to recognize standards. Notice, do you usually give up before you even try? Or maybe get involved in fair distractions when you are about to take a big step? A good exercise is to write down for a week every moment you sabotage yourself. It will look exaggerated at first, but you will be surprised to see clearly where the traps are. And the exit? Fight the internal lie with the conscious truth. Every time that thought "I can't," respond mentally, "Not yet, but I'm on the way." Feeding faith itself is like strengthening a muscle. It requires daily practice. Start small, celebrate every micro-victory and, especially, treat your inner voice as it would treat a great friend with encouragement and respect. And speaking of internal voices, there is another one that also likes to make noise. Imagine trying to run a marathon carrying a backpack full of stones. This is more or less what happens when you get carried away by mental negativity. Each defeatist thought, every nothing works out to me, weighs on his shoulders and steals the energy needed to move forward. What's worse is that the mind, when used to seeing the worst, ends up creating a reality that suits this limited view. The good news is that thinking is a tool, and like any tool, it can be trained. Start observing yourself. What kind of internal dialogue do you feed? When something goes wrong, do you punish yourself or seek to learn? A simple and powerful practice is to create a diary of gratitude every day. Before bed, write 3 good things that happened, even if they are small. Gradually, you begin to reprogram your focus to the positive. I'm not talking about blind optimism, everything is beautiful all the time, but a conscious realignment. Will negativity knock on the door? Go. The difference is that now you don't have to let her in, offer coffee and still pull a chair. You learn to observe the thought, question it, and replace it. Because the mind is fertile ground and it is up to you to decide whether to plant hope or hopelessness. And speaking of isolation, there is something that can further silence this inner voice. There are times when it seems easier to isolate yourself than facing the world, right? After some disappointments, rejections, or simply for fear of getting hurt, many people build high walls thinking they are protecting themselves. But in practice, isolation undergoes the soul, taking the brightness of the small joys and driving us away from the connections that, ironically, could more heal us. Living behind barriers may seem safe. But it's too lonely to be healthy. No one evolves alone. Relationships, whether of friendship, family, or new meetings, are like mirrors that show us parts that we would never see alone. A good conversation can bring clarity to a problem that seemed without solution. A hug can rekindle the flame of hope. If you feel that you closed too much, start with small gestures. Send a message to someone, accept a simple invitation, participate in a conversation wheel. Sometimes an eye opens doors that have been locked for years. Of course, opening yourself to the world requires courage. And yes, some people will disappoint you. But others will surprise you in wonderful ways. The secret is not to wait for perfect connections, but to be willing to live real relationships, with everything they bring from learning. Because in the end, it's not the perfection that saves, it's the connection. And if the isolation imprisons, there is another even more treacherous habit that keeps you chained. The victim's mindset is a silent but powerful trap. It is that pattern in which it is always the other's fault, circumstances, unlucky, government, waning moon. Everything seems out of our control. And as we continue to point out our finger, we lost the only thing that could really change everything: personal responsibility. Being stuck in this posture is like trying to drive a car looking only at the rearview mirror. You are not going anywhere. The problem is that complaining is addictive. It is easy to justify the lack of results by blaming the environment or in people. It's hard to face the mirror and say, okay, maybe I'm sabotaging here. But it is exactly at this point of turning that the greatness lives. The responsibility is heavy at first, of course, but it also frees it. Assuming the authorship of its history means taking the reins of its own destination back. And that, my friend, is one of the most powerful sensations that exist. Want to start breaking this mindset today? Do the following exercise every time you feel like complaining. Stop and ask yourself, what can I do to change that? Sometimes the answer is uncomfortable, but it always points to some kind of practical action. Because those who decide to get up and act leave the position of victim and assume the role of protagonist. And speaking of distractions that take us out of the axis, there is a modern epidemic that needs to be faced. We live in the age of hyperconnection, but ironically, we have never been so disconnected from ourselves. Each notification, every infinite scroll on social networks, every video that just one more and I stop fragments our attention until we no longer realize what really matters. Digital distractions are like energy thieves, small, constant, and sneaky. And the worst? Most people don't even realize that they are being stolen every day. The focus became a rare superpower. If you can stay concentrated for more than 30 minutes in a task without checking your phone, congratulations, you are almost a modern monk. But for those who want to recover control, a practical tip is simple and powerful: create zones without technology in your day. For example, no cell phone in the first hour of the morning or last minute before bed. You will be scared of how much your mind brightens when you stop feeding on this constant bombing. Of course, the goal is not to become a digital hermit. Technology is an amazing ally when used with conscience. The question is the one in charge, you or the machine? Learning to master your attention is how to pull the emergency brake before the train derails. And since we are talking about changing the course of our lives, we also need to face the next obstacle that prevents many people from evolving. Change is scared. It's like jumping from a high trampoline. You know the jump can be amazing, but your whole body screams to stay where it is. The resistance to change is natural after all. The brain loves what is predictable, even if it is uncomfortable. We prefer a known problem to an uncertain solution. But life doesn't respect our comfort zone. It changes, like us or not. And those who resist too much ends up behind. Accepting change is like surfing. You don't control the sea, but you can learn to use the waves to your advantage. A practical way to start breaking this resistance is to make small changes on purpose. Change the path you make for work, test a new hobby, talk to different people. Each little break in the standard is training your mind to see the new not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Of course, not every change will be comfortable at first, and that's fine. The discomfort is the warming of the soul to something greater. With each adaptation, you get stronger, more flexible, and more prepared to grab the opportunities that many people don't even notice. And since we talk about transformation, it's time to hear that inner call that can no longer be ignored. There comes a time when the discomfort of standing stands over the fear of changing. Maybe you are feeling this now, that restlessness that whispers there is something greater waiting for you, but it won't fall from the sky. Personal transformation begins just at this point, when you decide that it won't be hostage to toxic habits, apology, or old stories that no longer serve you. It is a call that requires courage, but also offers rewards that words cannot describe. Starting does not need to be grand, it needs to be true. One step at a time. Exchange an excuse for an action. Choose to get out of bed when the desire was to stay. Say no to what weakens you and yes for what strengthens you. It may be to adopt a 10-minute reading routine a day, maybe finally make that appointment that you have advanced for months. The important thing is to act, because transformation does not happen in theory, it happens in practice. The most beautiful of this process is that as you change, everything around you changes too. New people come in, opportunities arise, forces that seemed dormant within you begin to wake up. What once seemed impossible begins to seem inevitable. And speaking of inevitability, there is a last message you need to hear before closing this cycle and take your next big step. If there's something I want you to take from here, that's it: you are much stronger than you might think. No excuse, fear, or difficulty has more power than your decision to change. True transformation does not start when the world gives you a perfect signal. It begins when, even in fear, you decide to take the first step. And let me tell you a secret: the perfect moment will never come. It is now or never. You may be wondering, but what if I fail? All good. Everyone fails. But who continues even after the fall is who really changes life. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite it. So the next time the doubt beats, choose to act. With each action, with each little victory, you will build the new version of yourself, stronger, lighter, and freer. Now it's your turn. If there's something you need to do, change a habit, cut a distraction, start a new project, do it today. It doesn't matter if the step looks small. The important thing is that it will be given. Because real life happens in action, not the perfect plan that is only on paper. So, let's live this transformation of truth. The next chapter of your story begins now, and you are the author. Now tell me, how long will you postpone the life that was born to live? Every toxic habit we identify here is like an invisible anchor. And the good news is that you already have the key to free yourself. But the transformation you seek so much does not happen in theory, it is born in practice, the daily decision to choose your growth instead of stagnation. How about making a commitment to yourself now? Choose one of the habits we talk about and start breaking it today. Only one. One step at a time is all that separates the life you live from the life you deserve. And remember, you are not alone on this walk. Here, in this channel, you will always find content that inspires you, challenge you, and strengthen you. So if this content spoke to you in any way, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and be part of this journey of conscious transformation. The next video can be exactly what you need to make another leap in your personal evolution. Let's go together.